Ladies, gentlemen, and legends of all ages, we all know that the thing that makes us keep coming back to Pokemon is, well, the Pokemon themselves. Everyone has their favorites, their beloved pals, their endless friends, and having a shiny version of your favorite Pokemon is always a fun and unique way to show that love off. Shiny hunting has never been easier than it is in Pokémon Legends Z-A, thanks to a few different interactions, some of which we have already talked about on the channel, others have been discovered since then and are worth touching on so that you don't miss out on even more chances at an even greater variety of shinies. And of course, the biggest thing that you can possibly do to get more shinies is to get the shiny charm key item, which gives you 3 times the shiny spawn rate compared to the default spawn rate, bringing you up from 1 in 4,096 spawns being shiny down to around 1 in 1,365, which is still quite rare if you're just walking around through the game without purposely farming for shinies. This is the biggest singular deal that you can have for actually increasing your shiny spawn chances, but it is locked behind the entirety of the research system, as it is the very final reward from Mable's research. And it's worth mentioning that Mable's rewards are actually quite solid in general, especially the last 10 or so on the list are pretty exceptional, and it's worth knowing that to hit research level 50, you do essentially have to complete every available rank of every research request that exists, excluding maybe 1 or 2 of the really small ones. That means that there is a hell of a grind attached to this, and so today we're going to break down the most efficient ways you can complete the different research tasks as well to help you get your shiny charm a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. Starting off with the general shiny farm information, then, just to go over stuff that we've already talked about in the past, I'll go quickly through this part, but the main reason that shiny farming in this game is so effective is because when a shiny Pokemon spawns, it will not despawn unless you kill it. It sticks around through loading screens, through rests, through traveling to the opposite side of the map and then coming back. Pretty much the only way to have a shiny Pokemon disappear once it spawns in your world is either to kill it or have it run away from you scared if it's one of the Pokemon that actively runs away, and this means that we can just mass reload into areas to spawn Pokemon over and over as many times as we want, and if one of them happens to be a shiny, it will stick around. So you don't have to reload once, then walk through the area, then reload again, then walk through the area. You can just do something like park yourself in front of a wild zone that has Pokemon you want the shiny for, then just spam fast travel to that same wild zone over and over and over for a while, and then after a bit you can just walk through the zone and check if there are any shinies around. If they are, great. If not, just repeat that. It's not a big deal, and on average, this method alone is right around 1 shiny Pokemon every 15 minutes, or around 4 shinies per hour. Of course, you could have exceptionally good luck or bad luck as well, but that is around the average. Of course, that also means if you had the shiny charm, it would be closer to 1 shiny every 5 minutes, which is absolutely nuts, because that's 20 shinies an hour. As well, it's worth noting, once the shiny actually exists within your world, you want to save your game before you initiate combat with it, so if combat goes poorly, you can then reset your save, go back in, and you're perfectly fine. However, what you can also do is fully empty the Pokemon's HP after you've done that save for a little bit of safety, get them down to that 0 HP stun state where you get 1-3 ball throw with a bunch of extra catch rate, and if you do this, you can actually save your game at that moment if you're not in combat with anything else. So if you save your game in that moment, every time you reload, you got that really high chance stun throw, which is really nice. One thing that we didn't mention the last time that we talked about shinies that is very important is that when you do any sort of loading screen, it respawns all Pokemon in a radius around you. It's not like it only respawns Pokemon in the wild zones. So in most places, it'll extend 2 or 3 full building lengths away from where you are in every direction, almost like an entire block of the city. Meaning if you do the method where you're repeatedly fast traveling in front of a wild zone, not only are you creating potential shinies in the wild zone itself, you could also be potentially creating shinies on the rooftops nearby or in the alleyways that are around you, where they are just having wild Pokemon hang out in the world itself, not in the wild zone. And while it is nice to be aware of that in general, the main way that you can take advantage of that is by using this to farm for shinies of Pokemon that aren't in wild zones, because all you have to do is find somewhere where that Pokemon just spawns in the world, ideally 3 or 4 of them to speed it up, and if there is a fast travel location or the ability to create a loading screen anywhere nearby that, you can then use this the same way that we do the wild zone fast travel shiny hunt method, but for an even larger variety of Pokemon, because it's not exclusive to the wild zones. You can then take all of this another step further through methods of automation. The one that most people are aware of by this point is in Wild Zone 3. There's a little structure in the middle that has a staircase where you walk into the door, you get a loading screen, you walk back down for a second loading screen. The reason this is way better than fast traveling is the only thing that you have to do is hold down on your left stick and it will repeat infinitely, which means if if you have tape or a rubber band or any method of locking your left stick in a downward angled position, you can do this fully AFK. You don't have to pay attention at all. You can walk away, not even use your hands, and let it happen while you're gone reaping the rewards. The mixing of these two methods then is that you can do this with benches as well, as resting on a bench counts as a loading screen, which adds a bunch more potential locations for shiny hunting in the radius around literally any bench in the game. But you can also automate that too, but only if you have a turbo controller, as instead of just being able to like hold the stick back like you can with that one staircase, to do this one specifically you need to be repeatedly tapping A and also turning left or right, because after you use a bench to rest you will stand up looking away from the bench. I don't have a turbo controller myself, but if you do, you can set that up as an AFK shiny farm method that will work for the majority of any Pokemon in this game. All that covered, then let's get into the real meat of this, which is research point farming for the sake of hitting maximum research level and getting all those juicy rewards, including the shiny charm itself at the very end. Again, I want to reiterate that this grind is quite hefty. It will seem deceptively fast in the early sections, but by the time you hit 40 and above, you will start going to have a lot of issues because you'll be running out of easily completable research requests, because you have to complete pretty much everything to hit maximum rank. Like, you may have the final rank of 1 or 2 of the more minor requests left over at the end, but everything else needs to be completed, and that means there is no like choice of which requests you do or do not want to do, what activities you prefer, because if you want the shiny charm, you just sort of got to do it all. So with that in mind, let's break down the system and the easiest way to min-max each type of research request that exists. As for how the points work in general, they start off requiring a fairly small amount of points per level at around 1,000, but every few levels the amount that you need per level goes up a fair chunk. And this is the main reason that it feels like it slows down significantly as you get to higher research levels, combined with just running out of the requests to actually complete as you finish them. As a general piece of advice, as long as you are generally like catching as many Pokemon as you can while you're walking around in the game, you should get a ton of progress in a lot of these things just as you're playing in general. As well, a lot of these requests have ways that you can double up on them, bringing progress towards multiple at a time, but I'm mostly going to focus on each research task individually, though I will mention the ways that you can easily double up nicely. That said, the first research request is filling your Pokédex. This is really straightforward. Always catch a Pokemon, if it is a species of Pokemon, that you have not caught before. That is pretty much as efficient as this one can get. Next request is fill your Mega Evolution Pokédex. The earlier levels you can do just by using the Mega Stones that you collect through the main story itself, and then catching the related Pokemon for those stones, and then using those on the Pokemon to Mega Evolve. Otherwise, you're just going to have to spend a lot of money or Mega Shards on Mega Stones to keep it rolling and keep that same concept going. The two places that you purchase Mega Stones are Quasartico Inc. in the northwest of the map, after you finish Story Mission 10, which costs Mega Shards in exchange, or the Stone Emporium on the southern street down the middle of the city, which sells a different selection of stones but for Pokédollars. As well, this shop sells fossils, but let's jump ahead a little bit because of that to reviving fossilized Pokemon. This one is hidden initially, it's not already on your research request list, but after you have completed Story Mission 10, a new side quest will be added to your map at the Pokemon Research Lab here, which is Side Mission 27. Head here, go to the second floor and talk to Reg. He'll give you a small loan of $20,000 and ask you to go buy a fossil for him. The Stone Emporium we just talked about is also where you can find these fossils. Buy one, bring it back to Reg, he will revive it to give you a proper Pokemon from the inside, and this will add the new research request to your list, which is revive 3 fossils, which is a one-time completion. First one you do for free during the side quest, that does count for the progress, then the other 2 you can just purchase for 20,000 each from the Stone Emporium once again. Next up, we have possibly the most overarching set of requests here, which is 18 different variations of catch a specific type of Pokemon a certain number of times. Like most of these, when you complete these requests, a new one will be added to just do more of the exact same thing for more points. And it's important to note that these don't have to be distinct species. So you could catch like 50 Weedle and that would count as 50 bug type catches. But there are a couple of ways to specifically go about doing this. Obviously, you want to catch things as much as possible just when you're playing the game in general. But if you want to actively farm this out, your 2 main choices are either to work through low-level areas like the first handful of wild zones and just chuck Pokeballs at everything that moves. A lot of the Pokemon in these areas have very high base catch chances because of how low level they are, because they're unevolved, and this means that you can go through pretty haphazardly just throwing things at things and it will succeed more often than it won't. The only issue with this is that when you catch a Pokemon, you actually do trigger a respawn timer. Normally when you just want to respawn Pokemon and replace them, you just fast travel or go through a loading screen of any type to reset the area. But if you actually catch them, they will not show up again for a number of minutes afterwards. afterwards. This is why we are doing this with multiple wild zones and cycling between them instead of just like going through one on loop. The next level of this then, once you are high enough level, and especially if you have enough money to bankroll some better Pokeballs like Dusk Balls and just play around nighttime, or repeat balls are fantastic for this too because they take effect if it's not your first capture of the same species. If you're willing to get the upgraded balls to use for this, you can go to higher level wild zones, and you can do some pretty fun stuff with that. First, not many low-level Pokemon are dual typing, but there are plenty of dual typing Pokemon that start showing up in like Wild Zone 5 and upwards. A dual type Pokemon counts as progress towards 2 separate research requests at the same time, so that does increase your efficiency quite hard. As well, you can just mix this with plenty of other research requests, which I will be talking about how we do that a bit more when we get to those. After that then, we have the singular largest chunk of research point gain as a request type, but they're also the most limited really, which is surveying wild zones. There is one of this for every different wild zone, so 20 in total by the time you finish the game. Each one of these requests is 1,000 points for simply registering every one of the Pokemon in the zone into your Pokedex by catching them. Sometimes there is 1 or 2 Pokemon on the list that are a little bit hidden, so it takes a bit of exploration, but while you go around doing this, you can also just be throwing bonus balls at any Pokemon you pass, which will help you farm the type-specific catch requests at the same time. As well, it's worth noting that the Pokemon does not have to be caught in the wild zone itself in order to count for this. You just need to have caught all of the Pokemon that can spawn in that given wild zone. So if you're making a point of catching any new Pokemon in general that you come across, even when you're not in a wild zone, you actually will be making progress towards future wild zones that you don't even have yet. Then we have the chunk to do with evolving Pokemon. Evolving Pokemon straight up is pretty straightforward in general and what it wants from you. The main note here is that these don't need to be a different species. You can evolve the exact same Pokemon 50 times and finish off that request entirely. With that said, there is a way to do this that is a bit more active than the standard methods, which is to abuse the way that the Wild Zone system works a little bit, specifically because of the set levels of the Pokemon. In Wild Zone 7, there are Kakuna hanging from the trees that are level 21. Kakuna at level 21 can evolve instantly, so you catch the Kakuna, move it from your box into your main party, instantly evolve it with minimal effort, and then shove it back in the box. That said, I mentioned before that when you catch a Pokemon, it does have a proper respawn timer that doesn't seem to be able to be reset in the standard ways, so you can do 1 round of this at a time, but there is at least 1 more spot that I know of that works similarly with this, which is in Wild Zone 10. There are a bunch of Caravana in the waterway going through the middle of the area, and they are usually level 30 or 31. At level 30, Caravana can evolve into Sharpedo, so this is another case where once you catch it, you can immediately instantly pull it out of the box and then evolve it. But this one is incredible double dipping because Caravana is also a dual type Pokemon, so you catch them because you want to evolve them, but every one that you catch is also 1 point of progress towards dark Pokemon catches and 1 point of progress towards water Pokemon catches, which I think as a whole is quite satisfying. I'm sure there's probably some other examples of Pokemon that spawn in wild zones at levels where they can already immediately evolve, but those are the 2 that I know of for sure that I think are very much worth diving into. For the next one, there is no great way to make it easy. I'd say the easiest farmable low-level stone evolving creature is Pikachu, which you can get a few of in Wild Zone 3, and then the actual evolution stones can be purchased from the Stone Emporium on that southern middle road again. Evolving via link trades is a bit more complicated because you do need another player to make that work. You can try and set this up with random people or even with your friends if you have any, but a nice easy way to get this done quickly is to use community setup link trade codes. Put in these codes when you are setting up a link trade, and these will link you up with people who are wanting to do the same thing you are. They intended to be just back and forth trades of the same things, though it requires the players that are involved to actually do it correctly, of course. The first code on the list, as an example, is supposed to be you put in a Haunter, the other player puts in a Haunter, and because of how that works, you would both receive a Gengar. Nice and simple. For some of these, there is also an item that the Pokemon needs to be holding when they are traded for the evolution to take place, so make sure you consider that when you're doing this. Then we have a couple of really simple ones. Relaxing at cafes, literally just pick any cafe around the map that you want and interact with it. There's not really a way to make it easier than it is. Then we've also got chilling on benches. This is specifically the prompt to play with your Pokemon when you are sitting on a bench, not just the time-passing sleep function, so just do that a little bit and you will complete this objective nice and easy. 2 more requests left then. Winning Pokemon battles is very straightforward. This means specifically battles against trainers, not just any random like wild Pokemon. And it's worth noting that each individual trainer you go against during the Z-A Royale activity counts separately as multiple bits of progress for this. My best night so far was 25 trainers, so that night I got 25 bits of progress towards this request. I haven't found any faster way to repeat battle things than by just doing the Z-A Royale by this point of the game, so I think that's the best way to do it. Finally then is smashing Mega Crystals, which unfortunately does not not give you progress per shard that you collect, but literally just the number of crystals that you smash. So you can't increase this through the canari plush or anything like that. You can't increase it by doing large crystals instead of small crystals. All it is literal number of crystals, and you need to smash a buttload of them. Thankfully, mega shards are a great resource to have, so you should be doing this anyways when you pass a crystal. Aside from that, the most important thing to know is that mega crystals have a 10-minute respawn timer after they've been destroyed, no matter what you do. That said, I have been working on a route that feels really efficient for farming mega crystals. I'm still trying to work out the last little section of the loop to make it as solid as possible, but I've adjusted it here for specifically number of crystals rather than size of crystals and amount of shards. The largest dense collection of mega crystals that I've found on the map are scattered between these rooftop here in these buildings north of Wild Zone 9. Just all of these rooftops in this little block, there's a bunch of mega shards around. You can see the actual crystals just by looking when you're on the roofs. And then the rooftops actually in Wild Zone 9 also have a bunch of clumps of mega crystals too. You can do all of this relatively back to back with no downtime, and that will take you around 7 minutes from my own runs doing that, which leaves us 3 minutes to fill before they start to respawn at the start of the path. So there are 2 spots that I like to hit up during that time. For this specific purpose, where the size of the crystal does not matter and it's just about breaking as many crystals as you can, the tower in the central plaza just has plenty of crystals dotted around the wall, so just do a loop around the center. If you have time left before you've hit 10 minutes on your actual farm loop, go to this shopping center just north of the plaza and climb up to the roof, and there are just plenty of crystals to break up here as well. Just another really nicely dense packed area. And that pretty much does it for today then, everyone. An updated guide to the ways that you can maximize and make the most of your time while hunting for shiny Pokemon in Legends Z-A, as well as a pile of tips and tricks or just general advice for getting through your research requests quickly so you can get to that shiny charm at the end of the rainbow. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.